Hey friends, this is Pastor Joe from Southwest Lutheran Church in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I have our discipleship recap reflecting on Pastor Somo's message this past Sunday, August 20th, where Somo talked about the passage from Matthew chapter 15, where Jesus is talking with a Canaanite woman, and they have this very interesting conversation because the woman comes to Jesus and she asks him to heal her daughter who is afflicted by demon possession. And Jesus responds to her first. He says, I came to save the lost sheep of Israel. And then he says to her that it's not right to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. And the woman says, well, Lord, the dogs do get the children's food because they get the crumbs that fall from the table. Of course, I guess children are messy eaters. And so when Jesus hears this, that yes, the Father's gifts are for the children, but overflow into the world, he says, this woman has great faith, and because of her faith, her daughter will be healed. Now, this is kind of a strange conversation to our modern ears, but what it's really about is what is Jesus' relationship both to Israel and to the Gentile nations around Israel. Because if Jesus came to be Messiah and he comes to reestablish the kingdom of God on earth and really to establish it rightly for the first time, what does that mean for all the people who are not part of historic Israel? Well, what we see here is that God's gifts, God's blessings overflow to the world. In other words, Israel is not being rescued and saved by Jesus just so that they could be the chosen people set apart from the world, but they're being saved so that they can really truly fulfill God's mission for Israel, which is to be the light to the nations and to share the good news that God will restore them with the entire world. Their job is to draw the world to the true God, and we find out that's going to happen through Jesus. Now, what do we do with this? Well, I think what Pastor Somo made really clear is how God blesses us and brings us to faith through other people. He used the example of this woman's faith, which saved her daughter because she brought her daughter to the Lord to have her healed. And he compared that to, say, his own mother's faith, which raised him in the church and made sure that he was raised to know Jesus and continued and was shaped and formed and brought up in the ways of the Lord. And, now look where he's at. Isn't that a great thing? That's a really great example for us, right? Because a mother's faith saved her son in a real way. If this is what the Lord has to say to us, and it's about how our faith overflows, so that we are not the only beneficiaries of our faith, but the good things God gives to us overflow into the lives of those around us, our family, our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers, and others. If that's what we're hearing from Jesus, and I believe that's true, what are we going to do about it? Well, I think a really good application here is for us to be faithful. Sometimes we can feel like mission is the most important thing in the church, and of course it is, right? We go and we share the good news of Jesus with the world that needs to hear it. But if we haven't first been filled up with God's teaching, if we haven't first been filled up with the gifts God gives us through the sacraments, if we haven't first been filled up so that we have so many good things the Lord has given us, then we don't have anything to give away. And so I would say this is a really good lesson, and it's what I'm taking away from our message that Pastor Soe shared this Sunday, is that we let God fill us up through all of his gifts, through his word, through his sacrament, through the life of the church together. We are brought together, and then when we are filled up with the good things of God, then those things overflow. And that's when we are ready to share the good news of Jesus with our family, our friends, our neighbors in the world. It's not that we should wait until we feel ready, but that we should always attend first and make sure that we are being cared for and filled up with the gifts the Lord gives us, so that we know that when it's time to share the gospel, when it's time to love our neighbor in need, we're ready. We've been equipped, and we've been given the grace of God that we can then distribute to people without measure. It's a really cool thing. So that's what I have from our passage and from the message that Pastor Soe shared. I would love to hear what you think about this passage. It is kind of a strange language. It can be difficult to understand. So got questions, got comments, throw those down below. And if you have your own understanding of what is God calling us to do and how he's calling us to live today, I'd love to hear what you get from that passage as well. So until then, until next time, take care. God bless. Have a great day.